Welcome to the Beyond the Vines podcast, where I interview local business owners in Sonoma County to highlight small business and grow our community. I'm your host, Amy Ehlers, a mom, realtor, and Sonoma County native, and I'm excited to connect you to some amazing people in this beautiful area that we call home. Hi, welcome back to the Beyond the Vines podcast. Thank you again for tuning in. Please be sure, if you've been loving these episodes and learning more about small business in Sonoma County, please be sure to hit like and subscribe so you can be notified of new episodes coming on. We were actually just joking about our kids saying that on YouTube, and now I'm going to go ahead and say it. So I am here today with Lori Walker with the Speech and Language Services of Marin-Sonoma. Lori Walker received her baccalaureate and Master of Arts degree at California State University, Fresno, and has been providing speech and language services for 23 years in a variety of settings, including private practice, schools, acute care, and skilled nursing. While she holds mostly an administrative role these days as a director and sole owner of the practice, Lori continues to assess and provide personalized treatment plans for adult and pediatric clients with a variety of communication challenges. She also provides supervision for new graduates during their clinical fellowship year. Lori holds a credential as a speech and language specialist, is licensed by the state of California, and is certified by the American Speech Language Hearing Association as a speech language pathologist. When not at the office, she is busy with her husband and two boys, ages 12 and almost 10, playing Legos, reading, and going on adventures. And with that, I welcome Lori.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you for coming today.
Thanks for having me.
I feel like I stuttered a little bit when I was reading, so this is a good topic for us.
It is okay because I can tell you I have word finding, memory, stuttering, all of it at times.
You're right? I mean, it happens. It's so funny. I love it. Well, can you tell us a little bit about the speech and language services of Marin-Sonoma and what inspired you to either take ownership of the practice or to start the practice?
Well, I did not start the practice, but I have spent my entire career at this office.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. I worked for two lovely women. There's two offices, one in Petaluma, one in San Rafael. I primarily was out of the Petaluma office.
Okay.
And it is a private practice, which means we have flexibility in who we can see and what we treat. When my lovely bosses decided to retire, there was a unique opportunity to either work for somebody else or take the business. So I took over the business.
Wow.
And it's been a very big learning curve.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's a little different owning it than working in
definitely. The office manager from the previous owners came with me, and that was the saving grace.
Goodness. Oh, yeah.
But it's been definitely a learning curve, like I said, but it was time for a change.
Yeah.
And
you do hit that point in your career, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
When they
nice.
decided they were going to retire, it was like, okay, do I want to stay in this profession?
Right.
Do I want to go somewhere else? Do I want to buy it? And
Right.
I didn't really think I ever wanted to own, but here I am.
Do you still think that was a good choice? No, I'm just kidding.
There's days where...
Oh, there's days. Yeah, I'm
and
sure.
Not that I want to bring it up, but the pandemic definitely threw me...
I was thinking about that when you were talking just now because my youngest daughter was in speech therapy during the pandemic. And I remember, and not with you, but I remember her having to like Zoom. And I remember wondering like, is this effective? It did work. But I was wondering like, they can't see her mouth like other than on a camera. And let's be real, she's 4. So she's bouncing around the camera. Like
for some populations, it worked. And for other populations, it's more challenging.
Yeah.
But we managed to continue, and we were considered essential workers. So I didn't have to stay home and do any of that. Cleaning, organizing. I was at work all the time.
Wow. How did you do that with the kids? Was your husband home?
No, because he is
also essential.
He works for all you people who are ordering from Amazon during the pandemic. He was delivering
No
them.
way. Oh, my gosh. Okay, yeah, he was definitely just, I'm not going to say more essential as you than you, but I'm going to say maybe. Yeah. Gosh, that was such a crazy time. Yeah, so that's interesting. Yeah, during the pandemic, so you already owned it during the pandemic. Oh yeah, that's hard. That's a challenge for sure. Oh my gosh.
And never having done like virtual therapy. But my staff was awesome. They switched on a dime, and we managed to pull through it and do okay.
Yeah, that is so great. I'm trying to remember once my youngest was doing it at school. And it was very, very short time before she graduated. But I'm trying to remember, there was something like with masks. And I was like, how is she supposed to do it with the mask on? Like, it was a whole thing. Yeah.
It was. But they ended up,
plexiglass or something? Is that what they did?
Well, they did plexiglass, but then there's also masks that have windows.
Oh, that might have been what they ended up doing.
Yeah. Because, I mean, I think those were probably around even before that for people who are deaf and hard of hearing. You can wear them so that they can read your lips.
That's a great idea.
But they weren't as prevalent, so you had to go find them.
Wow. That's so funny to look back on that. So who do you primarily serve? Children, adults, a mix of both?
Well, because of the uniqueness of the practice, we have different contracts with different local agencies. In my office, we primarily work with children of all ages. We can have kids as young as like 18 months.
Oh, wow.
All the way up to high school. Usually it's preschool. Actually, I shouldn't say preschool. We get the 2-year-olds up to like elementary school primarily.
It's like because you start hearing it at that time, like you start catching these things?
Well, it depends. So with communication disorders, there's a variety of things that we work on. For usually our 2-year-olds, it's that they're not talking.
Oh, okay.
Or they're limited in their talking. And they're just not able to kind of communicate with their parents or others. So we'll start working with them. Then for some of the preschoolers, it's more, okay, well, now you're putting together words, but it's not quite maybe grammatically correct. And then for some of, I think it could also be like the articulation. You're not making your S's or your R's.
Right. Right.
And those can go on for a while.
Yeah.
And then some older kids, it's more like problem solving or perspective taking, and they just have challenges around that area.
Got it. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
And you mostly serve Sonoma County and Marin County.
Yep.
Great. And what's the difference with those two offices? Can people go to both, or it's more just whatever's more convenient for them?
It's more about what's convenient.
And you have different like specialists in each one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. What are the most common speech and language challenges you help people overcome?
Depends on the age.
Yeah. Yeah.
Usually with our younger population, it's just being able to communicate what their needs. For some of our older kids, it's not being understood by peers. And then there's also the population where they are non-speaking.
Yeah.
And so it's using alternate means of communication, whether that's low tech, where there's just pictures, or whether it's high tech, where they're using either a dedicated device, a speech generating device. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to forget this.
That's okay.
So
as I stare at you. No, just kidding.
So they might use a device like that.
Right.
More commonly, we're seeing iPads with apps on them.
Okay.
And there's a whole bunch of different kinds, and it really just depends on the child and their needs as far as which one might be better or worse.
That makes sense. What causes a lot of these? I mean, I'm sure it's so many things. Like,
it's a lot.
Yeah, like physical. I assume there's like physical component,
anatomical, physiological stuff. Hearing. If you have chronic ear infections during the vital, language acquisition period. And then there's, if you have a more pervasive developmental disorder like autism, or there's genetics that play a part, like Down syndrome. There's also sometimes unknown.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. That's so interesting. What are some of the early signs that children may need speech therapy?
So like some of the big ones is not putting together 2 words by 2.
Oh, okay.
So if they're still using like single words, or they're just blah, 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 not making really true words, that's a concern. Another would be sometimes more of something more pervasive would be. Don't
even worry. I'm almost thinking like pronunciation too, and like you were saying earlier, S's and R's. I think is that pretty common. I mean, a lot of kids grow out of that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a hierarchy of sound development, and there's certain processes that all kids go through.
Yep.
If they stay too long in a process, then that becomes a concern. So like that, a common one is like when a kid will use like a K, won't use a K, and they'll use a T. So like cat, they would say as tat.
Totally.
So that's okay until like 3. But after 3, it's like it should
this is something that
should be working its way out.
There you go. Gosh, it's so interesting to me. Yeah. That really is. Yeah, because it is hard to know as a parent. And I remember going through this, like, is this development? I remember mine was like right on the cusp, and I was like, let's just work on it just in case.
You know, I always say parents know their kids best.
Yes, yeah.
And if you have any questions or any concerns, reach out to your pediatrician.
Totally.
Because you can get services right away.
Right.
If they qualify.
It's probably easier the younger they are, I would guess.
Yes.
Yeah, before it becomes too much of a habit.
Well, that, and you build those foundation language skills so that hopefully by the time, if not before, but by the time they're in kindergarten, they won't need those services, because it's really, it's hard to pull a kid out of school to do therapy within, you know, the school district. So if you can get it done before they have to go to school, it's better.
That makes sense. That makes total sense. What advice do you have for parents who, and you just kind of gave some that suspect their child might have a speech delay? I can't even, here's my speech delay. I can't say suspect.
So reach out to your pediatrician.
That's the first step.
There's, within Sonoma County, there's North Bay Regional Center, which is a stud. See?
We're just struggling today. We need more coffee.
Yes. It's a state-funded agency.
Okay.
So here in Sonoma County, it's North Bay Regional Center. It encompasses Sonoma County, Napa County, and I think even Solano County.
Okay.
And then San Rafael has Golden Gate Regional Center, which is like Marin County, and I think it might be all of San Francisco.
Okay.
But that you could reach out to them if you have concerns about their speech and language before they turn 3. So if you have concerns at like 2, you would reach out to them and say, hey, I'm concerned my kid has some speech challenges. Can I have him assessed? This is the next part is a lot of parents don't know is after a kid becomes 3,
right, they're
considered school age.
Yep.
And so you can actually take your child to the school district and say, I want my kid assessed because I have some concerns. And they can get services through the school district.
That's fantastic.
Where it's free of charge.
I love it. Okay. That's fantastic advice. How can parents support their children's speech and language development at home, whether maybe if they've been diagnosed with something already that they need to work on, or even just like as they're getting older? And
Talk to them. Read to them. Sing with them.
Oh, I love
Play
it.
with them. It's really what it is.
I love all of these. These are all manageable.
And it's not like you don't have to set aside, you know, oh, this is going to be our speech time. I mean, you can narrate pretty much what you're doing all day, especially with our little ones who are, you know, 3 or even 4, under 3, 4. You know, you're taking them to the grocery store. Talk to them at the grocery store. You know, oh, look, here's, you know, our bananas. Let's get some yellow bananas. You're doing laundry. Perfect time to talk about the socks going in, the socks going out, turn on, turn off. It doesn't have to be a designated time.
Yep. So. I love that. That's great. And then when they're in speech therapy, a lot of times they have homework.
Hopefully they do. I was a stickler with the homework. That's good. The more you practice, the quicker they go through.
She did graduate quickly.
I have a lot of parents who like to practice in the car.
Yeah, I remember doing that actually too. Something about like S's in your tongue staying behind your teeth. I think it was our homework. So there's a lot of that in our house.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, so like making sure that they're getting that done on a regular basis, I assume can only complement, you know, what you're working on with them.
Well, I mean, generally speech therapy is done once or twice a week.
Right.
And then the rest of the time they're, you know, with their family or their caregivers. And those people they're more, I can't talk.
Let's see. I think it's because we're talking about speech therapy that we're both still like cognizant of like how we're speaking. Yeah. That's so funny.
They spend a lot more time with them than we do.
Yep.
So we do a lot of also parent education and parent coaching during the sessions.
Oh, I love
so
that.
that we can make sure that what they're doing is going to be effective at home.
That's great. Yeah, especially because I feel like each kid is so different, right? So like you may experience this with one kid and not with another, and it's like a whole different, or maybe there's kids that both do with different, that need different services. I would imagine that happens. So yeah, or several.
Everybody's different.
Everybody's different. I love it.
The same approach you might think will work for one student, and then the next thing you know, you have to flip on a dime and try something different.
Interesting. Yep. Wow. What does a typical speech therapy session look like?
People would say, all you're doing is playing, and that's pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
For our really little ones, it is play, because that's how they're learning is through their play environment. With our kids that are practicing their speech sounds, it's boring. You got to sit there and repeat your words over after over, again and again and again and again.
Yeah.
And so we do a lot of games.
Good.
We'll do computer games. We'll do board games. Some kids are more apt to just sit and drill and kill.
Yeah,
Others
right.
are not. And then, for our non-speaking kids, it's child-centered. Whatever they're interested in doing, we try and follow their lead.
There you go.
To, support them.
I love that. That's a good plan. I imagine, too, it takes like a minute to kind of get to know each kid.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and like
For sure.
figure out what's going to work for them, just like with parenting.
Yeah.
They're all so different. Keep
They
us on our toes. Do you incorporate, and you mentioned computer games, but any special tools or technology in your practice?
Generally not. It's just toys.
Yeah.
We really like open-ended toys where you can use your imagination and just bombard with language. So a lot of Fisher-Price.
Great.
There's a plug for them.
I love that. I love all the classic toys so much. Yeah.
The only downside I have with some of the classic toys is now they all talk. And it's like we need to turn them all off so that the kids can talk.
Yes, because you're not going to be able to hear them either over it. Oh, that's interesting.
So a lot of those kinds of toys. For some of our younger kids, cause and effect. So those are also good. But really a lot of the old school toys.
Yeah. What about like art or drawing or anything like that, so that they are like describing their pictures to you or that sort of thing, so you can hear it? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
We also use like the dot markers.
Oh,
where
I love
you
dot markers.
punch every time you say a word, you get to punch a dot.
Oh, that's fun. That's a cute way to kind of keep them interacting. Yeah. Oh, I like that. That's a good game.
And then just painting. So that you can just kind of work on whatever you can work with them on.
Your sessions sound fun. I feel like I need to sign up.
They are, and then we get, well, what are you doing? This doesn't look like speech therapy. This looks like play, and it's like, well, that's how kids learn.
It's how they learn, and also I would imagine it makes it a lot easier to get your kids to speech therapy when it's fun. Yeah, they're not going to fight you on it.
Yeah,
I remember those car seat days. Can you share a success story that really kind of highlights the impact of your work?
Well, I mean, I'm sure I have several.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
The one that sticks out the most in my mind is I had a 2-year-old who, when he came to me, all he would say was "ma," and very limited sounds. And as we progressed, he was able to communicate, functionally with his parents for what he needed and, what he wanted to do and how he was doing. And that to me is really important. And it's really gratifying to see a kid who goes from not being able to do that to being able to do that.
That's so cool. I love that.
Or even so I know I talked about the kids, but we also have adult patients. And
Right.
I usually see the adults in the hospital. And so for them, it's completely different. A lot of the times when I'm working with patients in the hospital, it's more about their swallowing. So seeing a patient who, maybe is unable to eat, going to being able to return to eat.
Wow.
And having that part of his life back.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. Wow, that's amazing. Really amazing. How can teachers and caregivers support children? And also, now that we're talking about adults too, because that's a great point, maybe hospital staff, that sort of thing, with their speech and language challenges?
Presume competence. That's a big one for us right now, is that just because maybe somebody isn't speaking or isn't able to use their communication all the time, just presume competence. And one size doesn't fit all. We're trying to teach our kids to be flexible, we as adults need to be flexible as well.
Yeah.
With how we treat and interact with our students.
That's a great one. Yeah. I do know a friend of mine's child had a really hard time, communicating. And so, of course, that came out in behaviors because they're so frustrated.
Yeah.
And when you, put yourself in that little body and think of how that would feel to not be able to communicate, that's got to be, you would behave
Hitting,
similarly.
biting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's got to be so frustrating.
Yeah.
So.
And the only way that they get understood is when their behaviors come out. And
Yep.
unfortunately, those are not,
Yep.
it's not great.
Interesting. So interesting.
Yeah.
What do you love most about your work? When you're not doing paperwork?
Some days I like the paperwork.
Oh, I bet. I'm a paperwork person, so I kind of get it.
Yeah. I like that I help support people's communication and giving them a voice. I think that's really important, and that's all people want to be able to do is communicate.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. That's great. That's an amazing job that you have when you think about it, It really is. So rewarding. Yeah. Coming off work a little bit, what are 3 fun facts about you personally?
So I love to go shopping.
Ooh, what kind of shopping?
Oh, any kind of shopping. Even shopping for popsicles for Ice Cream Popsicle Friday is exciting because it's not my money.
Oh my gosh. So when I see the selection on Fridays, that's you? Yes. All right, cool. That's good to know.
So I manage that.
That's great.
So I like shopping.
Yeah.
I have gotten to hold and pet a koala bear,
Oh my gosh.
which is my favorite
Where
animal.
did you do that?
Oh, my honeymoon. I went to Australia.
Stop. Oh, that's really cool.
That was
wow.
my ultimate vacation. That was the bucket list. And so we're like, if we don't go now, we'll never go. So
That was a good choice. That was a good choice.
It was. And then I love going to monster truck shows.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. That's awesome. Do you like your family, you all go together?
So I went a lot before I had kids because
Okay.
my kids both have sound sensitivities
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
hate going to
Oh my gosh, isn't that funny? Does your husband like to go?
He does.
Okay, so you guys can have date nights there at least.
I actually took him to his first monster truck show.
Stop. Maybe the boys, as they get older, I don't know if that's something you grow
Maybe.
out of, though.
I don't know.
Yeah.
They're better.
Yeah.
They're
okay,
better.
good.
I
Do they
just
wear
don't know.
headphones?
They do.
Yeah, they probably have to. I would
Yeah.
think most kids would.
It's
yeah.
loud.
Yeah.
It's loud. Funny story. I have 2 younger sisters, and obviously we're all married now, but each one of us took our husbands to their first some sort of truck show.
Stop. That's really funny.
They've
You're
never
bringing
been
your
to-
family tradition in.
Yes, never been to monster trucks, and then we also did the demolition derby.
Oh, that's fun.
Up in-
I have been to that, but that was a long time ago. That's a fun one. That's a really fun one. Oh, how cool
So,
is that?
I like those.
That is a good fun fact. I love it. Is there anything else that I may have missed that you want to share with anybody?
I think the only thing more is just kind of like the scope of what speech therapy does. I talked about some of the smaller stuff, or not the smaller, but some already. I talked about a little bit about the adults, but even our adults who, most of the time I see them, they've had a stroke or some sort of brain injury. And so we work on cognition. We'll work on memory. We'll work on executive functioning, and sometimes even executive functioning with our younger kids, teaching strategies on how to manage planning, initiating, maintaining, an organization.
I love that, organizating. I'm going to start using that.
Organization for even some of our kids who, are neurodivergent. And so I think a lot of people don't know that about
great
speech
point.
therapy,
Yep.
is that it's not just teaching S's and R's,
Totally.
but there's a whole
It spreads.
widespread.
Yeah. There we go. Widespread. That's the word we're looking for.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a good point too, because when you say speech therapy, I think about preschool age, and it's so much more than that. Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. I would even think maybe, and maybe I'm wrong, that you probably get adults who didn't have speech therapy as a kid that would now want to maybe make some corrections.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
we'll have adults who maybe as a child stuttered and have been through stuttering therapy for years, and sometimes they come back for a maintenance.
Yeah.
Is there anything new? Well,
Interesting.
not really.
Yeah, what can you do for a stutter?
Usually it's all about strategies and, teaching them strategies to use when they feel like they need to.
Yep.
So.
Amazing. Well, where can my listeners find you, both online or?
Yep. We have a website, speechlanguage.info. We're located in Petaluma, right over by Wilco.
Okay.
And then in Sarafel. We're also on Instagram and Facebook. We're not as active as we used to be, but that's because my therapist is out on maternity leave.
But when she's back,
Maybe. We'll see. I need to try and get myself into doing it more.
It's a necessary evil, but it's next on my list. And I feel like I said this on the last podcast episode too. So I guess Thursdays are my work on social media days.
Work on social media days. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And thank you for listening. If you like what you hear, please be sure to like and subscribe. Learn more about Sonoma County and all that we have to offer here.